we're going to look at content versus format. This is one of the things a lot of people struggle with. Which comes first, content or format? That here's your descriptions. It says content is a topic or matter treated in a work. So you're looking at what you've got in there. Format says to form, design, or arrange something. So when you're looking at content, you're looking at what do you have in there? And format means which way does it get put together. We make our decisions about tables, we make our decisions about figures and things like that. And then we go out there and we figure out how to write the whole thing. And I personally believe that you're better off doing a lot of things that are written before you ever worry about putting it in the right format, so to speak, because with today's stuff, you can cut and paste and you can put whatever you want wherever you want it. Formatting using MS Word. And we're going to shift back and forth using MS Word. When we go to setup, we want to set up our margins. We want to set up our line spacing. We want to set up our font. We want to set up our paragraphs. And these are basic sorts of things. So I'm over here in MS Word. When you look at it, you've got a couple of different parts up here in the corner. It says you've got your font up here, and if you click on this arrow, it brings up all of these things. It says, are you looking at a body? Are you looking at headings? Then it shows you your different types of fonts that you can use in here, and it's got a million of them. You're best off staying with some standard ones, such as Arial, which a lot of people like. There's Calibri, and what happens is if you touch on one of these, it will actually show you down in the middle what the font looks like. And then you've got things like Times. You can type in a T and it'll take you to places like Tahoma, and some people like that, or to Times New Roman, which is one of your very common ones. Don't go out there and get something really bizarre. Over here it says your style. Do you want it regular? Do you want it italic? Do you want it bold? Do you want it bold italic? And sometimes things have to be like that. You want your font normally to be automatic or black. You don't want it to be shades of gray because it doesn't need to be in there. And then your size is going to be somewhere between 10 and 12 point. There are effects in here. You have your superscript, you have your subscript. You can do small caps, you can do all caps. And these are very important parts to look at. Then over here it says you've got your advanced, and it gives you scaling and stuff like that. So all of these things are important when you look at font. And a lot of these are up here on this little bar. You click on the B, it becomes bold. You click off the B and it's off bold. You can do the underline or the I over here, and you can get subscripts and superscripts over here as well. You can change your font color over here if you need to. And you can go between cases all up here. The other thing you want to look at is paragraphs. Here it shows you a alignment. A lot of times when we start out, we want to have no indentation on everything, but you may want a special on your first line by a ½ inch in order to move things in on that. I always say double spacing, and you don't need to put a space before or a space after. If you've got a heading coming up or something like that, you can always add in an extra line when you want, but don't put the spaces in there, and make sure you indent on the first line because it makes it much easier to deal with. If you click up here, it talks about pages and page breaks, and we have what we call widow and orphan control, and that keeps things from separating too much. And you can go and it says you can keep lines together, so you can mark over two lines that you don't want to have separated, and it will keep them together. One of the other things that you have to set up in the beginning are margins. And margins, you come over here to the layout tab, and over here you have margins. Now, margins are going to change depending on what you're doing. Our specific thesis has to have 1.5 inches on the left-hand side, 1 inch on the right-hand side. In the beginning, it's 2 inches on the bottom and 2 inches on the top, and after that, it goes to 1 inch on the bottom and 1 inch on the top. So what you would do is you'd come down here to custom margins, and you'd set it in, and it says 1.5 inches on the top. On the bottom, it's supposed to be 2 inches, I believe it is. On the left-hand side, it's 1.5 inches. Right? And we're looking at portrait. It's on normal. Down here, it gives you the ability to apply to whole document or this point forward. So in the beginning, you have it on whole document when you start out. But once you get into the introduction, it's going to be this point forward, and you're going to change it to where the bottom is 1 inch and the top, I believe, is 1.25 or something like that. You have to watch out for your margins, and you do that over here. Your paper, you have your regular size paper. Your layout is going to be all over here. It says how big your headers are. And again, you can apply this to the whole thing. So these are things that you can set in the beginning and just do them once. And once they're done once, they're there. That's just setting it up right so that you don't have to deal with it again. Basics. First, format. Line spacing, margins, justification, font. You're going to look at your typeface, what you've got there. You're going to look at your font size, and you're going to determine what your headings are. Now, here's the beautiful thing about this. If you determine what your headings are, and again, let's go back into Word. When you're in Word, if you're on this part, it says you've got heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and you can go in and you can arrange these in there, and you can tell them how big the font you want on it and all of that is. And when you do heading 1 and heading 2, later on, when you want to do references, it says over here, it will do a table of contents, and it will do the whole table of contents based on the headings. And when you're done, you can click Update Table, and it will put all the right page numbers on it. So it becomes very easy to work with in that format if you take a little bit of time to deal with the format. But remember, content always comes first, except for that stuff which becomes very simple to deal with. So content comes in right now. Put down the written part. Don't worry about whether the paragraphs are all complete and everything. Put it down in the way you want to put it down, and then you can go back and you can start reading through it to see if it makes sequence, to see if it flows. And once you've got that, you can move on to the next part. Determine where your figures go, determine what are tables, put it all in there. Get the literature cited with all of the content. When you start typing things in, it's a whole lot easier to put in what came out of what paper at what point rather than trying to go back and put it in. During the literature cited, you should not have a sentence that does not have a citation to it. That's key to be able to do the whole thing. There should not be a sentence without a citation to it. So you get the literature cited down with all of the content. Format comes back again. Once you've got it all set up, you put in things like page breaks. Don't go space to get to the end of the page. You put in a page break. It will automatically break the page there. You can take them out if you don't need them. But these are things that you put in last. You can check your widows and orphans to make sure that things are going on the right pages, that they aren't getting stuck in other places. You can look at the size of the figures. Can you fit more figures on a page if you reduce the size slightly? And that's one of the things that you want to look at, because when they go out and they typeset things, they want to make sure that they can get the most bang for their buck. You don't want to have 100 pages with one thing on each page and 50% of it blank. It doesn't look professional. So what you want is you want to make sure that it looks well. Numbers versus words, 10 versus 10. When you have small things, you have one beaker and one spelled O-N-E. But if you've got a 1 milliliter beaker, you use the numeral 1. If it's something that you're counting, we've got 10 trees, T-E-N. But if you're using 10 liters, it's 10. So look at your numbers versus your words to make sure you're getting that right. And then look at the general appearance. What does the page look like? Does it have more white space on it than anything else? If it does, you need to fix something, because it shouldn't look like it's all white space. And these are basic things that you deal with on format. When it comes down to it, if you think about these things ahead of time, it goes back to a sign I saw on a secretary's desk once. It says, "Of course I don't look busy. I did it right the first time." These things will be fixed up by the time you're done. But if you pay attention to it and you do it right the first time, you won't be getting a lot of grief from your advisor about it. They'll look at it and go, "Oh, this looks good." In the beginning, I will correct things with poor format. But after I've looked at it 2 or 3 times, if the format hasn't been fixed on things that I've said, you need to fix the format on them. We're going to get into some rebellion where it's not going to get done and it's not going to be dealt with properly. So when you deal with this, you have to be able to look at format versus content. And which comes first? Well, they come at the same time sometimes, but a lot of times you have to have the content down in order to get the format right.